So welcome back, everybody. This is going to be another Nintendudez podcast. And who are my lovely people joining me today?
Mike.
And I guess I'm lovely, Travis.
You are lovely, Travis.
Aww.
Anyway, so this one, probably see the title, and it's going to be mainly focused on nostalgia for this podcast, but it's not going to be like just the straight, this game was awesome because I was young when I played them. It's going to be really focusing on like, what does that word like nostalgia really mean? Because we all have games that are nostalgic, and we all have ones that are that. But my first thing is I'm going to tell a really quick story. I'm going to try to abbreviate this as much as I can, or shorten it. So I remember throwing a frisbee with my little cousin in his backyard one time. And after a while, he realized that he wasn't really good at catching the frisbee. So what he did is he basically threw the frisbee like in between us and tried to run and go get it because it was something familiar to him. So when I'm thinking of this topic of nostalgia, it's coming back to stuff that we know that's familiar to us, which is why I think that sometimes we might get defensive when we look back at a game, when we all have examples of games that are like this, games that we enjoyed a lot growing up, but objectively they're not really good games, but there's something familiar to us and something that we know. Because it's really not fun for us, and like fun for just, I guess, a gamer in general, to be struggling with things over and over and not getting any feedback on how to do better. You see it in a game, you die, you lose a life, and so you have to try a new strategy to do better. And if you beat a boss and like never get hit, then you're doing really good. And so I kind of want to see what you guys kind of build off of that, because nostalgia is really going back to familiarity with us. And the reason I brought up the whole little cousin throwing a frisbee, we all want to do things that we know how to do. We can try things out and get better at them, but if you don't get any feedback on how to get better, it's not really fun. And games are a form of entertainment. So, who wants to jump from that?
Well, I will say pretty much everything you said is true, because it's like a psychological thing. People don't like change. You know, you grow up with something and you become familiar with that. Because as a kid, I feel like when you learn something as a kid, that's like what sticks with you the most, because that's, you know, like the first thing you learned. So the first video game you play is like your template idea of what a video game is like.
Exactly.
And so everything off of that, you know, kind of branches off of that, like you said. So that I totally agree with. And so I think, you know, you can make the argument, so like the first Mario game you played, whether it was Super Mario World or Mario Kart, that's your idea of what a Mario game is. And so it's true, when something branches off a little bit too much from that, whether or not it's better or worse almost doesn't matter. If it's too different, it could feel like unfamiliar and strange, and you won't like it. You know, so I think what you're saying is totally valid.
Yeah, and so the thing that I was thinking of, and again, other people like Mike and Travis both have examples of this as well. The very big example for me is Sonic Riders. Sonic Riders, objectively, for the Nintendo GameCube, it's not a good game. I had a ton of fun playing it. I figured out the systems that were really good, and I was able to just easily get through the tracks and get through it with really fast times and never having to struggle about running out of air. Watching other people play for the first time, you see the really big flaws that are in that system. It's objectively, in my mind, it's not a good game. I still have a fun as hell time playing it, but then again, if you don't know how to play it, it does not do a good job of telling you how to improve, what to do better, or anything. It doesn't do that. And another point, like, I guess I'll let you guys talk about the games that you have that are like this after this. But one thing that I want to point out is, when we talk about, people always say you have to talk about the classics or respect the classics. But are those games really better? They might be subjectively better to other people, but objectively better. I think we talked about in former podcasts. Like, Wind Waker is objectively a better game than Ocarina of Time. Like, usually the games get better that way, but it's maybe not as familiar to us, and that's why we don't say it's as good. So, if you guys want to go with your games now, I probably don't want to get too far off topic there.
Okay,
so I haven't talked yet, so I might as well put
Sorry,
in my
buddy.
game. Basically, any game that I played on my Game Boy Color, I think is a very fair assessment of things that aren't exactly objectively better than anything. Because I know I played the crap out of any first-gen Pokemon game. I had Yellow, I had Blue, I had Red. Or I should say my brother had Red. And I stole it from him all the time so that I can collect all of my Pokemon. And when you look at, like, there's only 150 Pokemon, you realize it's like, oh, it's really not that much. Whereas, like, the next gens, even though there's like far more Pokemon and they like expand on different movesets, they like improve. Like, when they introduced the fairy type, I was pissed off because I'm like, what the hell is this crap? And then Nick says they had to do it to make it balanced for dragon types. And I said, ha ha ha, no.
Honestly, no, I'm with you, because the first Pokemon games, like speaking from like an objective standpoint, the battle system was broken. 100% moves can still miss in that game. Like, there's actually like fundamental flaws in those games. I still love them to death. I'm still working on trying to complete the Pokedex in mine, and I even have Mew in one of my games through a glitch. Like, I'm absolutely with you, Travis.
Yeah,
but
using teleport.
Like, well, not using teleport. There's kind of a glitch for like.
How many different ways are there to get Mew?
There's a couple. But anyway, that's not the point of the podcast. But yeah, I'm with you, Travis, because there is fundamental flaws in there that gets improved over time. The battle system gets balanced out over time. Not many people like the addition of Fairy type, because Fairy's a stupid name for a type.
Exactly.
I think it was a good change to have. Sorry, Mike, go before I get sidetracked with Pokemon.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say, because the game that I have that I wanted to talk about was a game most people probably haven't heard of. It's called Yu-Gi-Oh! The False-Bound Kingdom. And I honestly probably would have called this like a top 10 game for me. I loved this game as a kid. And just before we started this, I looked up the reviews for it. Like, the best I saw was like a 4 out of 10.
Holy crap.
Clearly people hated this game. But it's weird because as a kid, I beat this game like 10 times as a kid. I was so in love with it. And it's weird because it's like an RPG, like turn-based combat style game with like Yu-Gi-Oh monsters and stuff. It's really weird.
Huh.
But I just remember loving it. I loved the story in it. I liked facing like the Egyptian gods in the game. Like, it was super cool.
Are they like duelists, or like you actually just battle the monsters?
It's hard to explain. Like, it's kind of like a tower defense type. Not really tower defense. It's like a strategy game where like you send your creatures to like different towns and they have to take over, and it's weird. I do want to play it as a Let's Play someday, so people might see that, because that's something I really want to play. But that's obviously a discussion for later. But the point is, when I look back at it, the combat in it's broken. The game doesn't really make sense. The story's stupid. The way they break it up is dumb. It's really short. There's no like multiplayer. It's a weird experience. But again, like we mentioned, as a kid, you don't care about that stuff. And I think the reason I like it so much is because it's Yu-Gi-Oh!
Right.
And I was obsessed with that as a kid. And so being able to like battle as like Yu-Gi-Oh! Monsters is all I needed. It could have been the worst game ever. But, you know, when it has those things, that's all you care about.
Yeah, honestly, it's a formula that's familiar to you. But then that's another thing that I want to go to, because Mike, going off of your thing, I remember there's actually one game that I got that it was one of my favorite Game Boy games, and it literally was just a dueling game. It was called Yu-Gi-Oh! Stairway to the Destined Duel. I'm not making that name up, but it was literally it was literally you just dueled people, and that was the whole thing. Like Kaiba and Yugi were like extremely hard to beat. Same with Merrick, but like Joey and like Bandit Keith were extremely easy. Just stupid things like that. But like, if we were going for like certain ones, I would say that the best one is the Yu-Gi-Oh! That I played. You'd probably say the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Game that you played, I don't know how many you've played, but was probably that one.
Right, and I would. So yeah, I see your point.
And so that's the other point I was going to get into. Nostalgia kind of like plays this role in what we conceive for subjective roles versus objective roles and whatnot. And I remember I had a comment in the top Zelda songs that I did saying that people were wondering if I was going to pay respect to the classics. I'm like, I never played the original like Legend of Zelda like all the way through. And yes, I know where like the melody started from and everything, but in my mind it's like, no offense to people out there who love the original Zelda, which is it's a good game, but in my mind it's not a better Zelda game. And whether people argue that is either going to be, I think it's going to be more of a subjective argument than an objective argument, which is kind of a hard thing to distinguish, but I don't know. When people just say pay respect to the classics, I'm absolutely for that. But when they say the classics are better just because they're older, I don't necessarily agree with that.
Right.
Like you saw how good of a game Breath of the Wild was. Maybe it's not as much of a good Zelda game. It's still a great game.
Yeah. Well, I was always going to say, that's why I'm almost surprised how many people said Breath of the Wild is the best Zelda ever. Because I kind of figured people would say, yeah, it's great, but it's nothing compared to Ocarina of Time.
Or Wind Waker.
Or Wind Waker. I'm kind of surprised so many people were like, yeah, this is definitely the best one. Because usually when games come out, they don't do that. Usually, like, they'll be like, oh, it's the best Zelda for a modern game, but the classic Ocarina of Time, you can't beat that, you know? And there's still plenty of people that say that. But yeah, I think, that's partially because of nostalgia.
Yeah, it's all about the familiarity of the familiarity of what they know. So I mean, this is just my personal opinion, and I want to hear you guys' comments in the comment section below about this. But in my mind, I don't think just because the game's older makes it better. Yes, it started the dynasty and whatnot, but I don't think that you can really judge a game based on that. Like, if you're judging a game based on its merit and how it stands alone as a game, you focus on the gameplay, you focus on the story, you focus on like how the game actually, like, if you're looking at games that do it well. I was playing a good game that does it is Mega Man X. I was playing Mega Man X on my SNES Classic, which I got it. It's amazing, by the way. And as I'm literally playing the game, the way that they teach you how to do things and the way that they show you it, they don't need like any dialogue to show you that as you're playing, you're about to get screwed up. Somebody was about to take you when you try to challenge him, and X comes out of nowhere, beats him in one shot, showing him like how much more powerful he is and like how you're trying to level up to be as good as he is. Like, it's a seamless transition of introducing a new concept and how to keep using that concept until you get better and better at the game. Right. And I'm fine with dying a couple of times if it gets me to be better at the game or discover a strategy that works. Like, I only beat one person so far in Mega Man X, and they barely even had any piece of dialogue to actually show me how to do it. They literally just let me play the game, and I experienced how to get better at it. Right. That's good. I think that's really good game design.
Yeah. But no, I do like games that do stuff like that for sure.
But I mean, now you see all nowadays that the games are just bugged down by like tutorials and all this crap, and it's just like, eh.
Right.
Like, it's because our generation's stupid and can't figure shit out on their own.
Yeah.
Right.
Honestly, Mike, in Final Fantasy X, they over-explained the sphere grid so bad. Like, I was stuck in that tutorial for way too long.
It's true. And I will say there is, like, I will defend that, even though I know it's a little bit off topic, that I will say modern games tend to be a lot bigger, too. So, like, for Final Fantasy X, the sphere grid, I will say, is impossible to perfect without using a guide. Because if you want to beat, like, the number one, like, secret boss, it needs to be perfected. So no, like, tutorial in the game can give it to you. So I think that's why they almost have to make it like that, which is annoying, and I can totally justify why someone would be annoyed by that. But I feel like they have to make sure you fully understand what you're doing. Whereas, like, in Mega Man X, it's, you know, you run and shoot, you know? So it's like, I feel like games today are just so much bigger that you almost have to explain more. So that's why, like, the nostalgia thing comes into a play, because, like, I feel like games today have to be like that. They have to be easier because they're bigger. They have to explain more because they're bigger. But some people don't accept that. They say, well, I like my games where you just explore and have fun. But it's like in a game like Skyrim, if you just do that, you'll never beat the game. You know, they have to give you some direction or else you'll never figure it out. So, it's tough.
No, that's true. Travis, sorry, we've been taking over for a while. Do you have any thoughts so far?
About the tutorial stuff or just in general?
Nostalgia or tutorial, take your pick.
Well, because backtracking before you mentioned the tutorial stuff is when I was getting my Switch, I'm like, what games do I need to get? And obviously Breath of the Wild and why is the name escaping me? Mario Odyssey were like the first two I researched to be like, okay, these have to like be on it. And then I was watching a Game Explain discussion on Odyssey, and then the question came up, is this your favorite Mario game? And then Andre had a really interesting answer to it, because he's like, in every way, shape, and form, Odyssey is better, but I will still say that 64 is my favorite Mario game because I will never be able to experience that kind of joy that I had when playing 64.
That's actually a really good point too, because it, as much as I hate to bring it in, but like technically it's kind of relates to something I learned in school called the law of diminishing returns. It's like after the way that it was, I remember it was explained to me in class was you get done after a long run or something like that. That first glass of water is amazing, like it's exactly what you needed. But the more glass of water that you take, your enjoyment's gonna like steadily decrease as it goes on. And theoretically, if you know like the graph of like a square root or something like that, it's kind of gonna like flatten out after a while. So objectively, it can be better, but it's not gonna match your joy that you had before. It's not gonna meet that expectation or the what you had. Because I mean, I'll be honest, I had way more fun playing games as a kid, but I think that's part of the thing because gaming was still new to me at that time. And I haven't played a lot of games. I haven't experienced different genres. Now I've experienced a lot of different genres. I know which ones I like more, and I know which ones I prefer. It doesn't mean that, like, I don't know. It's like you still, after a while, you're still gonna get repetition. And so I'm with you. You can't really match that joy that you had as a kid when playing those games. And I think that's one of the reasons why nostalgia plays such a huge role. It's because it's familiar for us, and it's because that we try to always match what we felt back then, but we're never going to be able to do so. It's sad, but it's true.
Though I will say, I was watching someone on YouTube play Danganronpa the other day, and I did feel a lot of nostalgia, even though I only played that like 2 years ago. Because I feel like when I played that game, I did have that like child experience. So I don't think it's impossible. It's just really hard to get because we have the notion of what we expect already, you know?
Yeah.
That it's really hard to go in with that mentality of like, I just want to do something fresh and new, you know? Because it's like impossible to do that, I feel like sometimes.
Which is kind of weird because maybe that's one of the reasons why like games like Truck Simulator or like Goat Simulator are doing so good, because it's giving us a different experience that is not nostalgic or something that we don't know yet.
Exactly, because like if you're playing a game called Goat Simulator, you're not going in expecting a great game, you know? You're just going in like, I have no idea what to expect. I'm just going to enjoy it for what it is, and I feel like that makes that stuff so much more fun, you know?
Yeah, which you've seen indie games just do so much better nowadays because like. I don't know, maybe I think that's probably why. It's like they're doing something completely different than a lot of AAA titles are doing nowadays. Like they're not making the best shooter that's known, or they're not making like an insane MOBA or something like that, like Blizzard with or making it updates with like Blizzard and League of Legends. They're just doing stuff that just seems like it'd be a fun project for them, and they want other people to experience their work. Right. And that's really all you need. If you have passion for it, it's gonna... Okay, that's not totally true, but if you have passion for what you're doing, it's going to have a lot bigger likelihood of success than if you're just, I don't know, just like, let's try something. Or it's like, I don't really want to do it. Somebody guy's kind of making me do it.
For sure.
So yeah, that's what I think.
So I think that's why I've been so absorbed in playing Borderlands 2 lately, is because it's such a different type of game to me, because it's a first-person shooter. But then, like, there's all of this, like, ability stuff, and you can make your tree however you want. Like, I even, like, YouTubed, what's, like, the best tree? And not a single one of those videos had the exact same tree. So, like, you literally can just shape your character however you want to fit your playing style. And it's so cool because you completely change how you play the game, even if you use the same character 3 different times.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's also super cool. So I guess the last thing that I'm going to point out too, and another reason why, so personally for people, especially for people who have played Undertale, I played Undertale a while back for my first playthrough. I'm on my second playthrough right now. Blew me away, defied all expectations. But it's literally a genre of games that's literally based around people who have played the RPGs before, who know the formula, and want an interesting twist on it. I'm wondering, like, and again, I think Borderlands kind of like that too. I'm just wondering if we're going to see that for more kinds of genres, because I think that's like the next step for them, because you already have what people know to expect, and then they're going to want a twist. So you play off that original formula and what they know to expect.
Yeah, I do hope we get more stuff like that, because stuff like that's what makes it fun, you know?
Yeah.
Like, take what we have, but don't be afraid to do something more. And I think no matter what you do, people are going to hate you. And so I think, you know, some people like to play it safe because they don't want, you know, people to criticize them for trying something new.
Call of Duty.
Yeah, but then,
Call of Duty went back to their roots, and I love World War II.
It's, we can make a whole podcast on that game, Travis, because I have so many up and down feelings about that game.
Oh my god,
whatever.
I
That's
loved
later.
the campaign. We could totally
That
do it.
is later. But I see your point, though. Like, with that, like, when that game went back to its roots, I feel like people were a lot happier. But I do have some friends here that were super annoyed with Call of Duty World War II because they got used to like Infinite Warfare style of like the new modern style where like the aiming is a lot better and the grenades are closer. So when they go back to like the shakier weapons, they're like, well, you know, I don't like this as much. I'm used to like the firmer controls, which I can understand because, you know, if you play like 3-4 straight games of modern technology and then they just randomly go back to like old school, while a lot of people like that, it's like you changed it up and now it's like, you know, it's almost like double nostalgic, right? Like you lost the old nostalgia, got this new style, and then you go back. It's like, you know, you're totally twisting things. So
yeah, well, that's I guess going to be the main question for what we see in for game developers in the next couple of years. What's going to win out? Was it nostalgia or modern games?
Right.
That's really what it's going to be, because that's literally the big fight that people are having now. Whether the Call of Duty that we're mentioning before, Infinite Warfare style, the new form is going to win, or if the old form is going to come back and make that much of a comeback that people are going to want that more.
Or Final
Right.
Fantasy doing what they did.
Yeah. Oh,
If
the
they go
examples are
back.
endless.
Yeah,
I
no,
know.
that's literally the war in games that I see nowadays. It's what's going to win, modern games or nostalgia.
And it will never end. It'll be no one will ever agree, and it will never end.
Absolutely. Perfect way to settle this. We can never agree on it. Cool, let's end this.
Pretty much.
Closing thoughts.
That's how you end a podcast. I like it.
All right, cool. Well, either way, unless you guys have something else to say, I'm going to wrap it up.
I'm good.
No, I think we officially accomplished talking for 21 minutes and not actually getting an answer.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think we got most of an answer for the first part of the video.
For the
anyway,
first.
we're going to disagree whether we got an answer now. All
I
right,
don't
comment section below. Talk to us. We want to hear your guys' thoughts because you guys have a lot of these thoughts and you guys help us out on our understanding of it as well. Please use it. But besides that, let us know what you think about between nostalgia and whether you think nostalgia games are subjectively good or objectively good. I mean, talk to us about it. I mean, we would like to hear your thoughts. Otherwise, the war versus modern games and nostalgic games, which will win out. I need to take a breath after that. So, signing off. This is Nick.
Mike.
And Travis.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, failers.